Okay, I got the edges all sanded, and I just used a hunk of, or this is a hunk of 150 grit, and just smoothed it up, made it pretty. Blow off the dust, and now I'm going to go ahead and get some dye in that stitch groove there that I made, right through there. And then I'm going to use the dauber and dye the edges. So first, we'll start dyeing that stitch groove. Now the dye is going to go on a little bit dark, but you got to remember, it's going to lighten as it dries. So it's not going to be like a big dark smudge on the side of the holster. But still, I don't want to put too much on there. I just want to color that groove in, so when I stitch it, it'll look good. Okay, there you go. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this part. Now I got to be careful not to get it on the thread that's already there. Because that would be unsightly. And if you're going to build a custom holster by hand, you might as well make it look good too. You know, when people say, "Hey, where did you get that?" You go, "I made it." They won't go, "Oh, yeah, it looks it." Instead, they'll say something like, "Wow, that's great." Making your own equipment will give you a sense of pride anyway, but if you make your own equipment and make it pretty, that'll give you even more pride. And who knows? You might get somebody to ask you to make one for them. And that helps to support the hobby. Alrighty, now I'm going to go ahead and dye the edges with the dauber. Lots of dye on there because this part of the leather, the edges, are very porous. And it'll soak up a lot of dye. There's some people that use like edge coat or edge paint and stuff such as that. I don't, because honestly I don't like the way it looks. A lot of times a factory holster will have edge paint on it. And like I said, if I'm going to take the time to make a holster by hand, I don't want it to look like a factory holster. I want it to look better. And speaking of that, talking about edges, the more time you take preparing your edge, the better it's going to look when you're done. Like, I'll burnish my edges a few times I'm going to burnish it with water, and then I'm going to burnish it with gum trag, and I'll probably do it twice with gum trag. And then I'll do all the stitching, and I'm going to check out that edge and see if it still looks good. If it does, I'll leave it alone. If it doesn't, then I'll burnish it again. But a lot of times I'll pay extra attention to the edges. Because not so good edge a lot of times isn't really that noticeable, but a really good edge is really noticeable. It's that extra little bit, like the edge on my holster here. This is my own personal use holster, and I didn't cut any corners in making this one. It's that extra little thing that people look at and say, wow, that's nice. And they don't even know what it is about it that makes it that much nicer. But I'll use that. But now I'm just going to let it dry. I'm going to set it in here so it sets up, and you know, it doesn't smear around or anything. I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll get back to it in probably tomorrow and start our edge burnishing.